Whilst tonight might not necessarily be for points, it most certainly is the catalyst for the first season in 2023. Good evening and welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the IMB World Series League's GT3 EU Championship, where we are actually delighted to announce Race Anywhere and Go for the Gap back as sponsors for this brand new year and this brand new era for season number 5. This evening kicks off racing action with its media day at the legendary Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Well, to talk you through all of the action, myself, Zach Sweeney, Alex Goldschmidt alongside me in the booth with Daniel Costello behind the scenes. And well, Alex, are you as hyped as I am? I'm really looking forward to this.
I really am, Zach. Good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to the show. Yes, 7 kilometres of prime asphalt in the Ardennes Forest. I mean, it's a true test, and it's a great way to kick off Media Day. And for those wondering, there's no classification sorted out yet. It's all going to be settled after this, and we've got the best part of over 40 plus GT3 cars running around this circuit over a 2-race format, which is well known, well tried, well tested, and it works. So I'm really hyped. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in Belgium tonight.
It's been a long winter. I mean, I remember back to season 4 like it was yesterday. I can't actually remember half the stuff that went on, but I've missed it. I've missed being here, and the drivers, the atmosphere that you get when you come to the WSL is second to none. It's something that you can't often boast when it comes to sim racing and esports. And these guys always put on a fantastic show. So I really am looking forward to it. And as Alex quite rightly said, today's just a media day. It's I guess a pre-season test, if you will, of sorts. I guess the final hurrah before you finally get yourself underway. The final chance, really, Alex, where you're under no sort of pressure to perform. It's more just a case of finding your feet, seeing where your pace is, and actually, in all fairness, your final chance to prove to yourself, to the admins, that, hey, no, I deserve a spot in some of the top categories.
Yeah, because we have the Pro-Am and the Am classification. You know, we see the regular suspects. I hope that Harry Wills doesn't drop the ball tonight, because he's a regular for doing that. He did that multiple times in the EU and also the US League. Of course, the US League will be later on. But yeah, I think it's also the last opportunity for the drivers to get the opportunity to change their car, because according to the Season 5 regulations, you have up until March 19th, which is 4 days from now, to make your final selection for the 5th season. And to be honest with you, with this circuit here, 2 races where we've got a 25-minute race, which is a flat-out sprint, and then we got the second race, which is 50 minutes, which also requires a mandatory pit stop. I mean, the elevation changes, the amount of camber, the tests that these drivers will have at this near 7-kilometre circuit based in the region of Stavelot, funnily enough, which is just one of the corners on this this massive circuit that has, 2 years ago celebrated its centenary, having been open since 1921. But we evolved up until this particular point where the circuit is now, and it still is one of the halcyon blue Ray-Ban circuits for GT racing, including what's going to be now known as the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa later on this year.
Yeah, pretty much any race fan knows Spa. I mean, it's a staple on the Formula One calendar, the GT calendar. Everywhere knows Spa. Everyone loves Spa. It's a fantastic circuit, and for good reason, as you say, the undulation change, the difficulty, the history, and the fantastic racing action that can be performed around a circuit like this. I mean, as you said, it's been through the years, and yes, it's been changed and trialed, and now we've refined it to be fair, I think it's a almost perfect layout. You've got everything. You've got the heavy braking zones, you've got the long straights, you've got the roller coaster format, you've got the variation in corner types, cambered, off cambered. What is there not to love about Spa? And obviously, some people might say, oh, but it's a bit boring now because it's so overused. For me, I physically cannot get bored of Spa, because every race that comes here, there's something to talk about. There's some sort of action going on, and we've got 45, GT3 cars here waiting to prove for their spot, to fight for their spot come the full 10-round season that lies before us. And the sprint format as well really opens the door for some chaotic races. Just look at the last few seasons as to the racing action that we've gotten, and Spa just gives the perfect sort of venue to kick that off with.
It does, and it'll separate the classes, I think, in probably the perfect way possible. The tests that we're going to see through the bus stop chicane, coming through one of the heaviest braking zones on the circuit through Blanchimont, where these cars are going to be pushing in excess of 165 miles an hour. Then you got the infamous La Source hairpin, where we have seen that people have decided to go, do an M&M and go around the outside and get the cut through for Eau Rouge and then Radion, but then the Kemmel Straight and the run down to Les Combes is also another fearsome place where we're going to see a lot of overtaking. I mean, Pouhon, we've seen it where people carry the speed in wide through the first apex and then into the second apex. They're a little bit tighter to the curbing. So momentum carry is crucial around this circuit, and it's great that we're going to have this opportunity where the drivers have this prevalence on media day to prove themselves. I mean, looking back at last season for season 4, where we had Neil Butler taking the pro title by 21 points ahead of Stuart Reynolds, and then we had Chris Chatterton who rounded out the top 3, 110 points off. There were some great performances all the way through the season. Pro-Am was won by Lucas Romano ahead of John Williams and Michael Paterman. And that was very, very close indeed. You then look at the AM Championship. Dirk Bowles, James Slates and Louis Boubier rounding out the top 3, covered by 30 points. I think, when you got the people at the sharper end of, say, the AM and the Pro-Am classification, this is their opportunity to build on that momentum that they've had maybe over the last season and a half or two, and go, well, I don't want to be an AM anymore. I want to play with the guys in the next class. I want to be up in Pro-Am, as we see Kai DL on our screens. ERS by Skylines Designs, a known quantity in this championship. I mean, I spent a lot of season 4 on the US broadcast, and I recognise quite a few names in this championship, like Ashraf El Haddad, who's currently running P6 in the warm-up at the moment. There's Carl Pearce and the number 19. The Ferrari is going to be strong here. But also the good thing is we have a nice divergence of GT3 machinery, from Ferrari to Lamborghini to BMW, amongst others. And one of the things I love about iRacing, Zach, is the fact that the McLaren MP4 12C has seen a little bit of love in Season 4, and I hope that is the same for Season 5.
I love McLarens, obviously. This is beautiful. And not only is that the case, the 12C on iRacing, it's the Dragon, it spits flames out of the back end. It just looks beautiful. It's great. So hopefully we'll see quite a lot of that. But definitely, I do like to see a nice diverse range as well. Carl Pearce gives us a good little wave to the broadcast. He's looking very concentrated, of course. And good addition, of course, now to Season 5. We've revamped the production as well. And now we've got some snazzy old graphics to give you, and also the cutaway screens. And, well, obviously now we get to have a bit of a look as to the drivers while they're working their way around the circuit, which, to be fair, Alex, I think tells you a lot, and it's a good insight to have when it comes to live racing, is to see the emotions through a driver, how they're dealing with the race at hand. And oftentimes you'll see drivers with a smile on their face. Other times you'll see drivers stone cold face saying, yeah, no, I am not blinking, I'm not doing anything. And it gives you a good sort of idea as to what kind of a driver they are, purely by the sort of the facial expressions that they give while they're doing it.
Yeah, I think what we should do, really more than anything now, Zach, is to actually take you all on board. Let's see if we can get into the cockpit once again of Carl Pearce as he makes his way through La Source to give you a full, unadulterated lap of this. Actually, let's go with Dirk Bouts from Belgium in the PSR by RP Motorsport number 11 car, as he is making his way across the start-finish line, heading up towards turn number 1. 20 corners at this 7.004 kilometre circuit. And it's the good old V10. It's the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo as he makes his way down through the dip. And this is a very significant descent into Eau Rouge. You've got to be fully committed. Use a little bit of a runoff area on the left-hand side. Try not to cut track limits going through Radion, as that naturally aspirated 5.2 litre V10 mid-mounted engine on that car screams its way down the Kemmel Straight through from turn 6, which is just past Radion, now into the 7, 8, 9 complex through Les Combes. A perfectly good spot for overtaking, but if you're behind somebody else, you can actually go through into turn 9 here at Malmedy, down in the dip into the 180 degree right-hand hairpin here at Bruxelles. You've got to tuck it in a little bit tight to the apex on the initial approach. Now into turn 11, appropriately known as No Name or Speaker's Corner, because that's where the circuit commentator will normally be. And then it's to the corner known as Pouin, originally at the circuit known as Double Gauche. So into the first one. Bounce decides to take the first part of it and loses the back end, but nicely holds that slide through the second of the left-handers. Now into Campus and into Stavlos, so into turn 13, tight on the apex, carry the momentum through the next left-hander at 14 before the double right here at Stavlos. But yeah, I mean, Dirk Bout's very, very lucky for that Lamborghini Huracan not to go backwards and into the wall.
Yeah, Pouin is it's a mightily fun corner, particularly in the GT3 machinery, because they've got downforce, sure, they've got power, but it's not unlimited. There is a fine margin between you got grip, no, you don't. Your car's going to give up and it's going to spin around. So definitely take a eye out for that as we run you through the grid order, of course, for race number 1. 25 minutes in length, and it's Johan Trope that takes pole position for the media day here today at Spa. Chris Thackle joined him on the front row with Lewis Boubier and Juho Huutonen, the second. Timothy Vanderbroek and Neil Butley, your top 6. Ivo van der Linden and Francois Perdreau, the 4th row. Chris Chatterton, Lucas Romano, your top 10, with Stuart Reynolds and Kai Dalziel just in behind the 6th row of the field. Looking beyond that, Demo, Harry Wills, the 7th row. Peter Lemkens and Dean Timms keep each other company on the 8th row. Marcel Brayton back in P17. Sam Van Ruler just behind him with David Hamming and Jean Brayton back, your top 20. Callum Beeman, Ashraf El Haddad, Stuart Viners, Dirk Bouts, just the next 4 cars beyond that. And well, we've still got a very, very long grid. We'll let them run through, of course, while myself and Alex, I'm looking forward to this one, in all fairness. Look at that. The top 35, Alex, 2.6 seconds around a 7-kilometer circuit. I'll be honest, that's pretty close.
I've seen grids closer than that, but to be completely honest with you, with 40 cars rounded out by Matthias de Gruyter and Max Furtwängler, it's going to be a spicy opening race. And the funny thing is that this will really set the tone for race 2. First out, it's a flat-out sprint. It's give it hell, elbows out. Everyone will have their teeth sharp and ready to rock and roll for tonight. And looks like they're under starters' orders, Zach. Over to you, buddy.
Here we go. Chris Thacker, Lewis Boubier, of course, making some big gains over the course of last season. Of course, they don't take to the normal sort of Grand Prix start lights. They go through La Source, and then that dip down to Eau Rouge is the starting lane, sort of the starting sequence, the starting zone, really. So they've got a little bit, but just look at that. They're too wide. I think like 20 odd rows deep nearly. So, wow, this is really going to be chaos as they dip their way down through La Source. Bit of a dip on the inside. Chris Thacker, Lewis Boubier, Juho Huutonen, Timothy Vanderbroek comes back from a season sabbatical, and I am really looking forward to getting this 25-minute showdown underway. Race number 1 for the media day for the IMB World Series League's GT3 EU Championship. Bit of a kerfuffle, but Chris Thacker puts his foot to the floor, and we are underway. A perfect start there from the Finn of Juho Huutonen as he moves himself up in a second place, up through Eau Rouge, and then over the crash through Radion, practically pushing him as Lewis Boubier trying to make some places up as they go through the Camel Kink, and then of course up the Camel Straight. Chris Thacker managing to hang in control. Lewis Boubier back up in a second place. Juho Huutonen just in behind in the Ferrari as he tucks into the slipstream. Bit of a couple of kerfuffles further back as Chris Chatterton tries to move his way back up into 7th, and that Mercedes looking to the right-hand side of the circuit, inside through Les Combes. He's got that job done, easy peasy, and well, for a 45-car field, Alex, they've got through quite cleanly.
3 wide towards the back end of the top 25, but Boubier got caught napping by Thacker as Butler's looking up the inside of Huutonen, going down into Bruxelles. Side by side with Peter Lemkens and Dean Timms through the very same corner, and Lemkens has to hold on back going through into Speaker's corner, but Chris Chatterton trying to go side by side with the likes of Ivo van der Linden, who's been running in other championships, one of which actually I commentate on as well. So van der Linden, I know, is a very rapid driver in his own right, but Thacker's already got away from Boubier to the tune of about 0.6 of a second, and we're not even at the end of the opening tour. François Perridiron for Delta V Racing going side by side with Reynolds for 8th position. Reynolds has gotten up the inside of him at the moment and gets through with the Lamborghini as, oh right, someone's had a bit of a turnaround. That might have been, I think, Dean.
Reynolds as well, I think.
Yeah, and there is Lewis Boubier's had a drama as well, and he was running P2, so that opens the door for Juho Huutonen, who is now a second and a half behind Chris Thacker.
it's been a bit of an awkward affair on the opening lap. People probably trying to shake off the cobwebs from the winter months. But Lewis Boubier, last time we were here in Spa was the inaugural round of season number 1. Of course, Lewis Boubier down in the AMS for that initial run, and he didn't have the best of luck here at Spa. I mean, granted, yes, he finished quite high up, second place in the main race, but unfortunately he missed out towards the end, and well, it seems that bad luck has continued into today for season number 5. Well, we'll have to wait and see if he can claw his way back up, but we tick off lap number 1, 2.5 minutes into this 25-minute sprint to the end, and Chris Thacker well and truly in control. Juho Uutinen, he's got Neil Butler, reigning pro champion, of course, hot on his heels, and well, Neil Butler and Juho Uutinen, they're both rivals from last season, and Juho Uutinen looking in his mirrors to see the reigning champion. That's both probably the best thing you could ask for, because the reigning champion's behind him, but also the worst thing, because he's got the reigning champion trying to attack him as well. There goes Timothy Van der Broek, maybe look to the inside of Legcom.
Yeah, oh, and Van der Broek's lost it! Oh, dearie me, what on earth? The back end just stepped out to the right-hand side, and Van der Broek, who was off the Stage 1 racing car. Yeah, and there's more dramas as well. There was a car actually going very, very slowly. Lewis Boubier has been in the pit lane. Lucas Romano's been in there for over 60 seconds. So has Stuart Reynolds. Max Furtwängler, I don't think, has even been able to take the start. But yeah, that was just uncharacteristic from Timothy Van der Broek, just going off exit stage left at all places after a heavy braking zone from the Kemmel straight into Licon.
Yeah, obviously not the best way to start off this season. Maybe just a little bit too hot on the brakes, of course, tucked in behind that fight for second as we follow on with Juho Uutinen, a driver who's not really had much luck over the course of season 4, and well, hopefully coming into season 5 he can make amends for that. His closest chance for a podium, I think, was at Moss Sport, where he almost managed to claw his way into P3, but unfortunately finished 4th, and well, he might be demoted to 3rd here as Neil Butler gets a perfect launch coming into curve Paul Frey. He's side by side with the Ferrari as they, well, work their way in towards Bonchemont, one of the quickest corners on the circuit. Neil Butler to the outside, of course. That's definitely not really going to work as long as Uutinen can keep his marks perfectly. He runs him out wide and well, can hang on, but forced to go defensive into the bus stop chicane. He's going to have the inside line. Neil Butler to his left-hand side, of course. Is the Audi going to go the long way round? Indeed he is. Gives him the inside for the next spot. There's Chris Chatterton having a look. Bit of a traffic jam as he has to slam on the anchors. Neil Butler, sensational fashion, bold, brave on the brakes, and most importantly confident, and that Audi was nimble enough to send his move around the outside.
As the late Brian Jones, circuit commentator from Brands Hatch, would say, he was high, wide and handsome through the bus stop chicane. Expertly done. Yeah, like you say, Chatterton had to really put on the anchors there. Van der Linden has got Pertrio right behind him with Lindmo, and Harry Wills now is up 4 positions, up into 8th place. Sam Van Hula and Callum Bayman now rounds out the top 10. Stuart Winers has made up 12 positions up to 11th, so is the highest gainer in this race so far, as we're 5 minutes in with 20 to go.
Yeah, and well, there's a couple of skirmishes towards the back end. This is Gene Breitenbach, the South African, trying to go defensive because Van der Broek is, well, hot on his heels just in behind. This is the fight between, of course, Ashraf El Haddad and Breitenbach, I should say. They're side by side through Lake Common. Well, trying to hang on then into the inside of Malmedy. There's the send from Van der Broek. What a move that is. The gap on the inside opened up and he filled it. Now downhill on the run to Rivage. I know we're going to disagree on this one, but there we go. Side by side off cambered, of course, as Van der Broek takes the inside line, the dominant line through an off cambered corner. He moves his way up into the top 15. However, the South African going to back up to the inside and, well, still run their way through No Name, downhill in towards Puon. And, well, this is fantastic respect between the two BMWs.
Yeah, well, Bruxelles, Rivage, it doesn't really matter. It's still turn number 10 as far as we're both concerned, Zach. But yeah, no hit checks here. That was great, respectful racecraft between the pair. They gave each other enough racing room, and still to be fully committed going to Puon side by side. Great work by the pair of them.
Indeed so. And, well, that initial move from Van der Broek, I think, you know, you're quite experienced with karting in terms of your real-life commentary. That was very much a karting-esque move in my eyes, because oftentimes with karting, obviously, there's, you know, packs of multiple cars, and well, as soon as one driver gets overtaken, you often see the drivers behind be like, yeah, cool, there's a gap on the inside, I'm going to follow my way through. As the fight here between Dalziel and Fleming through Curve Paul Frere, and well, up in their way, and well, this is very close just in behind, because they've got Frank and Jarmo Sastamoinen just in behind as well, ready to pick up the pieces. And while granted this is only for P23, well, they're not having any love lost here. The gloves have well and truly off. And oh, there we go, the Lamborghini. Fair play to hang on to that one.
Yeah, DL had a quick code brown right there. going around the outside of Gus Franken. But yeah, to still hold on to it, and you know, let's be completely honest with it. Kai DL last year actually switched to the Lamborghini midway through the US season, if I remember correctly. So he's a known quantity in that car. He also picked up podiums in the US division. Peltier really closing in on Van der Linden. And this is the battle for P5, and it's good old turbo flat six versus naturally aspirated 6.2 litre V8. As Chatterton looking to go on Hootonen, who also looked up the inside on Butler going through into Les Combes. And just look how much Chatterton is swarming all over Hootonen. I think he's trying to go up the inside of the fin. And it is nip and tuck between the pair. They are still side by side into Rivage. Chatterton's going to make the move and gets through. Van der Linden nearly had an opportunity himself.
Beautifully done, squeezing that Mercedes through. Hootonen had no choice other than to give him the space, and yeah, there we go, a little bit wide out of potentially no name. Could actually invite Ivo van der Linden to the inside of P1. However, smartly enough, backs out of it. That Ferrari nimble enough just to take the racing line and hang on to what is now P4. So as I was saying about Mosport, Hootonen demoted off the podium, and well, now it's all aboard the Finnish Express, because he's got Van der Linden, Peugeot, Wills, Lindmo, Ruler all behind him waiting to pick up the pieces. And he's not done himself any favours, because the more he fought, the more drivers were brought into this mix, and well, unfortunately now he's got to deal with all of them all at once.
It's also dependent on the tyre leg over the course of the race. I mean, we're probably 8.5 minutes in. You know, we're getting to about 4 minutes away from half time here, Zach, and some cars are going to be a lot kinder on their tyres than others, as Harry Wills decides to go around the outside on Peltrier going through into Blanchimont, cuts to the inside, doesn't give the Frenchman any room to breathe, and is looking towards the outside going into the bus stop chicane. Harry Wills sends it. Is he going to get the inside undercut? He is, and he's going to pull past him. That's a great move there from Harry Wills. But I think Peltrier in that BMW M4 GT3 is going to come straight back at him into La Source, but has to slot in behind Harry Wills in the number 95.
Does so, and well, taps the back of him, spins round on the exit of La Source and causes a whole heap of trouble in behind. He's tumbling down the order. Harry Wills gets off scot-free with that. Unfortunately, the BMW became worse off. Slightest of taps, literally the most marginal of things. Fortunately, those in behind wasn't, too caught up by it, as Ashraf El Haddad, the Flying Dutchman, is breathing down the neck of Brayton back as they rise up the crest. However, Timothy van der Broek is just in behind and making the most of that backwards momentum. Drag race up the Kemmel Straight, and defensive goes Brayton back, giving the slipstream to the Lamborghini. Defensive into Les Combes. However, the BMW's got the space on the outside. Could he soar his way up yet another place? He might well do. There he goes, the 71 machine up now into 12th place. However, the Dutchman's going to fight it back. He's got to be careful though, because the other Brayton back is now hot on his heels as they dip their way down into Rivage. No way through for the BMW. I've got to say, Alex, this is fantastic racing, well, not fantastic driving there from El Haddad.
Well, he just lost the back end. I mean, Ashraf, let's be completely honest, last season was running the Mercedes, then switched to the Porsche, and now he's trying with the Lamborghini. So he's not the only one, that has suffered a bit of a drama. I mean, obviously Dean Timms, who's now recovering up into 26. As there's another Lamborghini going for a spin. That's James Slates for the RP Motorsport, number 86. That is through Pouan and is having to wait. But yeah, it was a great move. Absolutely textbook move there from Timothy van der Broek in that particular occasion. Not only got the run on Ashraf El Haddad, but also got the side draft from the Lamborghini. That is incredibly crucial down the Kemmel Straight, because if you can pull alongside, you will get that extra kilometre an hour or two going through that particular part of the circuit. As we now see Callum Beeman, who has got Stuart Winus not too far behind. Winus again has made up another position, but Navarro de Bova in 19th started, get this folks, 33rd on the grid 11.5 minutes ago. Biggest mover up the order tonight.
Wow, that is beautiful as well. Speaking of, we're going to take a look as to who the biggest start gamers are. Callum Beeman not too far off there, up 12. Stuart Viner is up 13. Kurt Van Hoenacker up 11, up 10 for Jeremy de Boiver, the father of Navarro de Boiver. And well, there we go, Dirk Bounce up 7, Carl Pierce up 10, Navarro de Boiver, as you say, up 14, Simon Dodd up 12. Some big gainers. Harry was most notably in the top end of the field up 8. And here we go, battle for P3. Chris Chatterton on the reigning champions doorstep, outside line, of course, for the Mercedes. He's got to send a bit of a kerfuffle in the background there as they jostle over 4th place. Outside line for the Mercedes, soars his way up into what is now 2nd place. However, Neil Butler in that Audi R8 going to have another look to the inside of Malmedy. Great respect between the pair of them. The outside line, the outside momentum for the Mercedes sees him hang on to 2nd place. Who's going to be braver on the brake? Just in the background, there's Harry Wills to the inside of Ivo van der Linden into Ravage. Beautifully done there. And well, we've got 2 fantastic battles here for 2nd and of course for 4th. And meanwhile, Juho Huitinen back inside that 2nd range in that fight for 2nd. He could definitely still have a good shot here for podium potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Wills finished 9th last season in the Pro category. He was actually in the Pro for both the EU and the US leagues. I still remember when I first jumped on board with WSL, and he was in a Ferrari, and he didn't have a good run. When I casually reminded him in a post-race interview when we were running at Spa-Francorchamps, he was in a Ferrari, and he got literally punted from behind, hit the sausage curb just off of the bus stop chicane, and the Ferrari went skywards on its roof, and that was it. That was all she wrote. But, you know, Harry, I think, has, over the course of Season 4, gotten to grips with Mercedes-AMG, and with that move that he did on Ivo van der Linden from Stage 1 Racing and the number 10 from the Netherlands, I think that's a sign. That could be a possible warning shot for those in front of him, because Harry Wills is only, get this folks, 3.5 tenths behind Juho Huitinen.
On his day, Harry Wills is up there with, you know, one of the best. And oh wow, that's sideways there from Dean Timms. He was the season number 3 AM champion, of course, and well, season 4 wasn't exactly his best right home in the Pro-Ams, and Media Day starts off, you know, not in the best of fashion, unfortunately, for the Ferrari. We'll come back up to this fight though between Ruler and Lindmo, was well there jostling over 7th place. But yeah, back to that point, Harry Wills on this day is such a good driver. He's so confident, and once he's into a rhythm, he's unstoppable. But as soon as he sort of knocks that rhythm even slightly, you find oftentimes he makes silly mistakes, costs himself crucial positions, but now he's got that confidence. He's absolutely flying and well and truly within his element. We'll focus on this battle though, riding on the rear end, just in the bottom right of your screen of the Porsche. There goes Lindmo to the outside. However, Van Ruler able to hang on, parks that car pretty well, and well, keeping the Mercedes at bay through Malmedy as well. Just discouraging the move, and well, hitting his marks, hitting the right basis, and actually, in all fairness, backing him into Callum Beeman, feeding him to the chasing car in behind, just to give him that breathing room that he can then try and pull away with.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how useful the torque is. As that's a spin. That is a spin. That is from Beeman behind Lindmo, who lost it coming out of Rouen, I think. Well, it was actually it was coming out of No Name. So yeah, Beeman's race has just gone a little bit south. Timothy Vanderbroek Broek actually dropped down to 11th position because he had a bit of an off track, off screen. Perdriau is trying to close in on Kurt Van Hoenacker in the Ferrari just up ahead, and the Frenchman's really looking to close on it, running with the same number that both Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton won their first ever titles with in 2 successive seasons, number 22.
Whipping out all the facts, love that. So good stuff, of course. And well, Pedro was trying to use that number to his advantage. Of course, we haven't seen a French driver win the F1 World Championship in God knows how long. It's been a while, so maybe he can do them some justice and win the IMB WSL Championship for season number 5, whatever category he gets put in after this race. There he is in full swing, full on focus there as well. You've got to be, not only around a circuit like Spa, Alex, but also when you're in a Stuart Viners, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 car fight, all for a top 10 position. You've got to be on top of your game. It's going to keep you active, it's going to keep you focused, and well, I'm for 100% that he's not wondering what he's going to have for food as soon as he's done with this. He's focused on the fight in front of him. As here we go, Vanderbroek and Breitenbach side by side. And well, of course, Vanderbroek was sensible enough to back up going up the hill.
Well, the last ever Formula One world champion for France was, funny enough, 30 years ago. Alain Prost winning his 4th title for Williams Renault in 1993 before he promptly retired, and then Ayrton Senna joined the team. But there's Van der Broek looking up the inside of Jean Breitenbach from South Africa. And Van der Broek has gotten... Oh, it's getting a bit close there. I just had to take a sharp intake of breath because you had Van der Broek, Breitenbach, and then also Van Unacker as well. Pedrio's not too far away from this, so it was 4 cars squabbling over the same amount of real estate. But in the meantime, Harry Wills has got past Euro Huhtinen, so the Finn in the number 44 down to 5th place is being hounded by Ivo van der Linden further down the circuit as they're making their way towards, I think that might be Campus and then into Stavlo. So yeah, this is oh no, Van der Broek's just lost it. Oh, that was a very good Travis Pastrana Gymkhana impersonation there, Timothy. Well held, but not what you need to do around a circuit like this in a 25-minute sprint race.
Yeah, look great if you're around the streets of Tokyo. However, the Ardennes Forest definitely does not tolerate stuff like that, and unfortunately the sensational rhythm that Van der Broek had put himself into after trying to recover from an early spin, well, unfortunately sees him down a little bit, down to 15th place, so he might have to claw his way back up to the front. But definitely positive signs, had it not been for that small mistake through the Piff Paff chicane, La Fagna, Campus, whatever you want to call it. There are, honestly, Spa and corner names definitely are a questionable one. Is Ruler and Lindmo side by side into La Source. There we go, the Mercedes to the outside. Van Ruler able to hang on for now. But yeah, honestly, how many different variations of corner names are there around Spa? It's just crazy.
Don't even get me started on the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. That's had more changes in 40 years than I've probably had roast hot dinners on a Sunday afternoon.
Fair enough. Probably. In all fairness, I completely believe you. And well, when it comes to Spa, it's like, yeah, you're talking about this and we're talking about this. We're talking about 2 different things, but, well, 2 different drivers here fighting over 7th place. The Porsche once again to the inside of Lecom. However, this time the Mercedes, with a bit more of an advantage, swoops his way to the outside, gives him the inside for the second part of Lecom. Up into 7th place there. Brilliantly done from Lindmo, who is moving himself up the field. A bit of a gap up to the next fight, which is, of course, queuing up behind Juho Huhtinen in that fight for 5th. But, of course, they're fighting over what they can and giving us a pretty good show while they do it. Van Ruler, well, his rule has come to an end in terms of that P7, and his mighty defence has been thwarted by Lindmo, who's been able to work his way through. Now the question is, can he keep it?
Well, that depends on his commitment and his cojones going through these respective corners, because the Porsche, we all know, is an absolute stalwart when it comes to tight, twisty circuits. Around a circuit here like Spa, it is very much a case when you are going to be on full throttle for at least 65 to 70% of this lap, of every single lap. And the Mercedes with the naturally aspirated 6.2 litre front-mounted V8 is going to start pulling away, as we're now going to probably more than likely see that as they come out of Stavlor and then head towards Blanchimont. You can see these pulling away. That gap now between him and Ruler is close to 0.4 of a second. It was a lot closer than that going through into the Piff Paff chicane and into Stavlor. Oh no, Van Ruler's lost it. Hard into the barriers goes the Porsche, and that is going to be the end of his race. The back end completely mangled on the back of Van Ruler's number 15 Porsche right there. That's one of the worst places to lose it, going through into Blanchimont.
Yeah, it's always a hard hit, and when you're pushing that hard trying to stay in contention, it's naturally going to happen. And you could see it coming, that small little twitch was just like, yep, cool, car is gone. And that found himself into the barrier. So while the Mercedes definitely grew the gap, the crash from the Porsche, well, exponentially grew it now to throw, unfortunately, him out of the race. Back up to this fight, though, because Juho Huhtinen has been able to get himself back ahead of Harry Wills in this fight for 4 through the camel kink and the Finn. Forced to go defensive. It allows Neil Butler to hang on to 3rd place, and now we'll see the full brunt of that Mercedes up into Lake Common. Well, he's got to be brave, he's got to be committed on the brake pedal. Huhtinen does the same thing side by side once more. We've seen this a multitude of times. Harry Wills, though, got the advantage, and a little bit of a twitch through Malmedy invites the Finn back up, maybe to go for the run. However, a little bit hesitant on the throttle, doesn't want to T-bone the Mercedes in front, and well, thankfully for Harry Wills, he's been able to hang on there to 4th place, but I'm sure this pressure from the Finn is going to be unrelenting, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the Ferrari, from its 3.9 litre twin turbo mid-mounted V8, has around 700 pounds-feet of torque. So it's got to, you know, when you get it lined up and on point with regards to the traction, as we head back to the battle, it's the Breitenbachs that are nearly side by side going into, of all places, Pouhon. And it, you know, it just goes to show that things happen. But there's been a big development. Chris Thacker, who was leading, is now down into 7th, and he's lost the back end again. I think that car, before he'd even gone off it to that point, might have had an already big altercation around another part of this circuit, and that car is a wounded animal. So that's a real shame for Chris Thacker, who was leading by the best part of well over 3.5 seconds.
That's heartbreaking for Chris Thacker, because he had, he had this race by the neck. He was hanging on to that, and he was doing such a good job of keeping the rest of the field at bay. Unfortunately, it's come undone with, well, about a lap and a bit left to go. We'll wait and see as to what the exact figure is, whether they cross the line. I think they are just going to get another lap in after this one, of course. And, well, it's how the cookie crumbles. Unfortunately, he still has got race number 2 to try and make amends for it. But definitely a lot of positives to take. While, yes, it's probably quite bittersweet as Vandenbroek into the pit lane, probably to repair a bit of damage taken to his BMW. But a bittersweet, Alex, I guess you could say. The positive was the pace was there, 100%. He can compete, but also the bitter part of it was like, yeah, well, I've just bottled what could be a win. As onto the white flag lap. This is the final lap of race number 1. This is what it all comes down to, as Harry Wills Houston promoted into the fight for the podium, ducking and diving, weaving around, trying not to give any space to the Finn just in behind. He doesn't really know where to go. Houston commits to the inside. There's the move for the podium. Ferrari to the inside. Harry Wills tries to hang it around the outside. Beautifully done. I have no doubt that Houtanen is not going to be very
sideways.
He's thrown it away. He's sideways. He collects Ivo van der Linden and Lindmo. He finds himself rolling backwards into the barrier at Malmedy. Houtanen promoted for free onto the podium. And, that is, as Fernando Alonso would say, karma.
Well, he was leaving the space at that point because he was absolutely flat chat sideways again through Malmedy. I mean, it's not the first time that we've seen Harry Wills have dramas going through Malmedy coming off of Lecom, but it just goes to show that, as you said earlier, he can be absolutely on point. One issue, and it's curtains. And yeah, I'm not at all surprised that has happened. It was such a shame because he gave Houtanen a run for his money, but this driver here, Chris Chatterton from Eclipse Racing Team, you know, the Mercedes has been the big gun around this circuit. It has won here at Spa over multiple different endurance and 24-hour races, and Chris Chatterton is on his way to picking up the W here in the opening race of 2 here on Media Day.
Indeed, so through the bus stop chicane for the final time, Chris Chatterton able to capitalise on Chris Thacker's unfortunate wrongdoings. He's been dominant, he's been waiting in the wings, and now he weaves his way down the pitch straight for the final time to take the first victory of the IMB WSL GT3 EU Championship. While yes, it's only media day, it's definitely positive things. Neil Butler comes home second. Juho Houtanen gets himself his podium. He started season 5 off with an absolute bang here for race number 1. Ivo van der Linden and Haken Lindmo just in behind. Then comes Stuart Viners and the 2 Breitenbachs in 7th and 8th. Kurt van Hoenack and Harry Wills, your top 10. Alex, what a race that was. And Chris Chatterton, he was waiting for his moment. He was there to pick up the pieces. And well, there he did exactly that. 3 seconds clear of the reigning champion. And as I said, it's not for points, but definitely a big confidence boost to know that you're on point and you're on pace around a circuit like Spa.
Yeah, definitely. I think, that will give the organisers of the IMB Racewear World Series League every sort of motivation to say, well, yeah, Thacker had a bit of a difficult race. He was leading up until the point where he dropped the ball, but Chris Chatterton made no mistakes. He made great overtakes. He was very much spatially aware of what was happening around him. And that is the key point. It's about how you position yourself in the opening race, but then also you've got to look at it from the endurance side, because the next race is going to be twice the length in terms of the timer, Every single driver has strategy to employ now, as we've seen over previous seasons of IMB Racewear WSL, where it's a 50-minute race and there's the mandatory pit stop. But at this pit lane is an absolute kicker, because you enter the pit lane into the bus stop chicane, and then you have to go all the way round the pit lane, down La Source, and into the GT area, and then you come out at one of the most hair-raising points on the circuit, Eau Rouge and Radion. Expect the unexpected in race 2, I think.
For sure, it's an awkward one. You don't want to get yourself a drive-through. It's probably one of the worst circuits I can think of picking yourself up a drive-through. Very, very slow and very, very long. Do look out, of course, as Alex said, for cars leaving the pit lane over the crest. But talking about strategy, it's not an endurance race, right? It's 50 minutes. It's still arguably a sprint race, while it's double the length of the quote-unquote sprint race that we have here. Yeah, it's not a 6-hour race. It's not a 12-hour race where people would say, yeah, fair enough, strategy has got a big part. But in a 50-minute race, it still sort of, in a sense, is. Around a circle like Spa, in a distance like this, in cars like these, do you expect strategy being a deciding point in the race?
I think it will be. We've seen it in seasons past, where some people have gone for the shorter first stint and then gone for the longer second stint, and then others have switched it around. They've got longer into the race and then decided, well, I'm going to push for as hard as I possibly can, and then leave it until the last moment when I know that the fuel light's on, I've got enough to get round, get to the pit lane, put less fuel in. So there's a double-edged sword on this one, Zach. So I think in a circuit like Spa, flat-out paces can be crucial, but the strategy will always play a factor into it, even if it is a 50-minute race with a mandatory stop.
Indeed so, and well, race 1 is in the books, and we're going to take a look as to how they racked up. Chris Chatterton takes the victory for Eclipse Racing Team. Neil Butler, Juho Huutonen, the podium. Ivo van der Linden, Hakon Lindmo, your top 5 with Stuart Viners, and the 2 Brayton backs of Marcel and Jean just in behind. Kurt van Hoenacker, Harry Wills, your top 10. Harry Wills could have been a podium, but unfortunately misfortune on the final lap. Simon Dodd just outside with the Frenchman of Francois Podro just in behind. Callum Beeman, Carl Pierce, Jeremy De Boyver, your top 15. Archie Lands, Gus Franken and Dirk Bouts round off the first screen. And looking beyond that, we'll, of course, take a look. Gus Franken, Archie Lands, James Slates, of course. And the top 20, let's not forget, are, of course, those that get reversed. So Dirk Bouts is just ahead of James Slates there in P19. Behind him is Archie Lands, I think. Actually, no, that's the warm-up session. I'm reading the one thing. There's Johan Reigns, your top 20. He will be your reverse grid pole position. Jürgen Knockout, Navarro de Boiver, Kai De Ziel, Thomas Pugh, Timothy Van der Brick, Tony Vander as well, Chris Thacker, Johan Trope, and Sam Van Ruler. 2 laps down, unfortunately, for the number 15. He obviously didn't have the best closing stages to the race. Beyond the top 29, there comes Matthias de Groot, Peter Lemkins, Didier de Vlaming, Jaume Sastamoni, Lewis Bubia, Ashraf El Haddad, Dean Timms, Matt Fleming, Lucas Romano, Stuart Reynolds, and then one lone final driver all the way at the back of the grid, lonely in P40, of course, is Max Furt Wangler, is what I'm going to say for that one for Effect Esports. A lot of drivers not making it to the checkered flag, so very clearly, Alex, a pretty chaotic race number 1.
Yeah, very chaotic race number 1. It just goes to show that it's not over until the checkered flag flies. That's the biggest thing here. And it's more a case of, how do you come back from this race? How do you make it into that top 20? Are you going to be on the podium? It's a case of wait and see, roll the dice, and whether you get lucky number 7 or snake eyes. So, and I think we've got someone to actually have a chat with, Zach.
We do indeed. Chris Chatterton, hello. Welcome to season number 5. And you kicked us off with some pretty good racing there. Talk us through your race. Up 8 places, of course, and well, you snatched a win right at the end.
Yeah, well, our information is wrong on the stream on our race for Preston the Nomad, so we'll start there. But yeah, it was good fun to get going. I didn't have a setup until 2 minutes before the race, but we threw something together, got it working, and then was hunting down my old teammate, Chris Thacker, and evidently the pressure just got a little bit too much for him. I'm only joking, Chris, I'm only joking.
I'm sure he's going to slate you afterwards. He's going to come for you. Got to be careful. Battle, of course, between you two. But yeah, no, a pretty good race one. I think you've kicked off the season in style. Yes, obviously you're not going to score any points or anything like that, but you're doing yourselves a lot of favors. You're showing, you're making a statement, and you're saying to everyone, you know what? Yeah, I'm quick. I'm on the scene. Bring it on. And well, are you confident for race number 2? What's your game plan?
Yeah, I'm always confident. Just be tucking in, taking the overtakes with the new drafting model. You just got to see how it's going to go, but we look like we're set up pretty well to overtake here. So we'll take any fuel we can get, overtake when we can, and try and get a shorter pit stop for the 50-minute race. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and speaking of season 5, granted we're only on the press day today. What do you think of the season as a whole? I'm sure you've taken a look at the schedule. The new format, of course, between the sprints and the endurance rounds as well. You looking forward to the season?
Very much. I was on the fence about coming back for the season because of other commitments, but when I saw the schedule drop, I was like, nope, that's for me. I'm coming back. I also enjoy the endurance events. I like the fact that we've got both styles of the racing, the sprint and the endurance this season. So hopefully that plays to my advantage. There's some tracks that I know will go really well at. So, yeah. Confident going into the new season and looking forward to racing old foes and new in the new season, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, Chris. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Best of luck for race number 2, and I'm sure we'll see you back up here very shortly.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Have a good one.
Chris Jannison, race winner of race number 1. We've just got a few minutes before race number 2. So myself, Zach Sweeney, and Alex Goldschmidt alongside me. We're going to step away just for a couple of moments. We'll go to a BRB and, well, don't go anywhere because race 2 is about to get underway. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, to the IMB WSL GT3 EU Championship. We're here for the media day here at the circuit, the Spa Francorchamps. We just had a very chaotic race number 1. We're moments away from race number 2, of course, reverse top 20 and, of course, double the length. 50 minutes this time by and a mandatory pit stop. It'll be myself, Zach Sweeney, Alex Goldschmidt alongside me once more to talk you through the second half of tonight's action. And, well, Alex, race 2 usually is a little bit better than race 1. And race 1 set the benchmark quite high, in all fairness. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one gets going.
I've got one thing to say about some of the Lamborghinis. They weren't having a great time, especially going through Puar. I think we had, within the space of a 30-second gap, I think I counted about 2 or 3 Lamborghinis that were sideways and off the circuit. Chris Thacker's got a point to prove in this one. Jerome Reigns is going to be on pole position for this. So the top 20 reversed from the 25-minute sprint race earlier on. I'm looking forward to the action. I'm hoping that Harry Wills doesn't lose the back end going through Malmedy again, because he did that twice in the previous race, got collected, got turned around, was backwards into the barriers. Still finished P10, but I think the Mercedes have been mustard at this circuit. They have been the tour de force. But can anyone else in any other manufacturer? I mean, Houtanen was up against the wall through a microcosm of both good luck but also good skill. He was able to get onto the podium, but it was all because of misfortune for others in front of him. So we're going to see whether the Ferrari can be a little bit kinder on the tyres over the course of the race distance. What will the Mercs do to their tyres? Will they rip them up in the first stint? Will they have to change tyres? There's so many different contributing factors. We had the discussion in between both races, but during the race about the facts of strategy. I think it still will play a part. How much of a part is dependent on the choice of the individual, and that's what's going to be more crucial above all. If someone decides to long fuel for the first stint, then that could be a good call. Or if they short fuel and go for the longer second stint, how far is the pace going to drop off?
Well, we will soon find out. Here is your grid then for race number 2. Johan Reigns and James Stakes makes it an all-Belgian front row for the reverse grid race. Dirk Boutz goes Franken, your second row of Archie Lands rounding off the top 5. Then comes Jeremy de Boyver, joining him for company on the third row. Carl Pierce, Callum Beeman just in behind, with Francois Pedro and Simon Dodge, your top 10. Harry Wills, Kurt Van Hoenacker, your 6th row. And beyond that, well, it's just even more drivers. Very, very big grid indeed. Gene Breitenbach and, of course, Marcel Breitenbach as well join each other for company on the 7th row. Stuart Viners, your top 15, with Haken Lindmo 16th. Ivo van der Linden, Juho Houtanen 17th and 18th. Neil Butler, Chris Chatterton, the top 20 reverse. And of course, Neil Butler, Chris Chatterton, top 2 in race number 1. Round off the back end of the top 20 for race number 2. Beyond that, Jurgen Knockout, Navarro de Boyver, Carl de Ziel, the Canadian, Thomas Pugh, the 12th row of the field. And well, we'll let everyone else scroll through before we get ourselves underway for race number 2 for the media day of the WSL GT3 season number 5. And I've said it so many times, Alex, but I am so looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. The names that we had crop up throughout race 1, the action that we had crop up throughout race 1, it shows that these guys aren't scared of going side by side. It shows that these guys have got some great respect. And, well, now we've got 50 minutes on the clock to all decide it.
That we have, because I'm really looking forward to it just like you are, but I think we're about to get things underway. But it is as Zach said, the GT3s will start on the rundown from La Source into Eau Rouge and Radion. Again, one of the things is this very, very long pit lane. You've also got to compensate for that, because you're going to go all the way down the traditional Grand Prix pit straight, through the exit part at La Source, go down the hill, and then the touch paper lighting point will be cars coming out and going into the path, potentially, of faster traffic.
Indeed so. Race number 2 moments away then. Reigns and States, your front row. They dip their way down towards Eau Rouge. Race number 2 is go. A perfect start there for Johan Reigns. James States under a bit of pressure from Dirk Boutz as they run their way in towards Eau Rouge for the first time side by side. Dirk Boutz soars his way up in a second place, but already nearly a second advantage for Johan Reigns as he soars his way off from pole position. Beautifully done, of course, with a bit of a kerfuffle just in the background as drivers try to contingent for second place. Jeremy de Boyver trying to move his way up in a 4th place versus Gus Franken is there in a drag drag race down up in towards Lake Com, I should say. And now Gus Franken trying to make some moves, nearly 4 wide a couple of times in the background, as well as 40 cars try to jostle the same bit of tarmac into Lake Com for the first time. And well, everyone's just trying to jostle for position and decide where they are going to be at the end of this first lap. There's Lands and Carl Pierce, Callum Beeman fighting over 6th place into Ravage once more. And well, to be fair, Alex, considering how chaotic it's been pretty clean.
No, it hasn't, because there's all kinds of hell breaking loose. I mean, Vanderbroek, Sastamoinen, Knocker. I've even seen Lucas Romano in the pits. De Vlaming was also in the pits. Bouvier's been in the pits for 30 seconds. Stuart Reynolds in the pits for 22. So there has been a lot more carnage as... Oh, right. Now someone has gone off. That's another Lamborghini going for... This is becoming a routine joke now. That was Bouvier, de Bouvier, I believe, who was in 15th position. And so, again, you know, everyone's jockeying for position. 7 of the drivers out of the 40 that started this race have had a trip down the pit lane early. And that's not what you want in this kind of race, because you've got to keep it clean. Reigns nailed the perfect start, but Dirk Boutts and Gus Franken are not too far behind. Gap between the top 3. I mean, look, Boutts is swarming all over the back of Jerome Reigns, looking towards the inside, heading into the bus stop chicane. Is the Lamborghini going to be late on the brakes? Yes, he is. Reigns runs a little bit wide, looks to get the undercut, gives it Boutts a little bit of a tap, but then compromises Franken. That's going to give James Slates an opportunity, and there's another BMW that's a drama, and there's more cars spinning in the background through the exit of the bus stop. Simon Dodd, I believe, is one of them. Jim Breitenbach is another. Oh my goodness, and James Pearce started stone dead last. He's halfway up the field and we've only completed the opening lap.
Indeed so, but Dirk Boutts with a brilliant move there, and well, Gus Frank and Johan Reigns got themselves and their elbows out quite a lot. There's James States on the back of Johan Reigns. He's going to try and make some moves, of course, and maybe in the slipstream up the camel straight towards Lake Com. The BMW forced to go defensive as they jostle for the podium, pulling out quite early actually to the left-hand side. A shot goes the Lamborghini. He'll have the inside line for Lake Com. He's got to be brave on the brakes though. Seems the BMW just that little bit braver. Your top 5 after the first lap then: Dirk Boutts, Gus Frank and Johan Reigns, James States and Stuart Vinez. But that is definitely all provisional because this race is going to get hectic. Side by side, Archie Lands and Francois Peugeot through Malmedy as well for 8th place. They run their way down into Ravage, but that top 4 separated by absolutely nothing. Well, it's a no-brainer that they're going to get their elbows out just a little bit, give each other a hard time, but Lamborghinis, you know, they're not doing as bad as a BMW. Oh. That is Francois Peugeot having a spin through No Name. And, well, whenever there's a spin, there's always going to be a bit of an awkward affair in behind as well. There's cars jumping in the background, and that just proves it. Well, that is not the last bit of action I think we're going to see, as Stuart Vinez actually also has an issue through P1.
That was Perdriau actually up off of all 4 wheels after spinning, got collected by the faster oncoming traffic to his general position. As behind De Boyver, Lands makes a little bit of an error. That nearly could have given an opportunity to Carl Pierce in the Ferrari, who's not too far behind. Pierce has only lost 3 positions, down from 7th to 10th. So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. Marcel Breitenbach has got Sam Van Ruler, who's looking to have a better opportunity this time around. Porsche goes one way, then the other, heading in towards Blanchimont. Still nip and tuck, but Dirk Boutts is... and Derulo's already out. Oh, that was a big hit. That was a big hit. And again, it's the same point on the circuit. And Sam Van Ruler's car was an absolute state. That car was total.
It was. I don't know how that happens. I didn't see any oversteer or anything like that. Could have been hardware. I'm sure our questions will be answered soon enough. But yeah, unfortunate, of course, for Derulo. But well, the show must go on and continue on. It is doing exactly that. Look at the train of cars that we've got. Multiple different chassis and loads of different drivers separated by absolutely nothing. Up the hill through Eau Rouge and Rallion for one more time again. Carl Pierce, Marcel Breitenbach, I should say, and Stuart Vinez all jostling once more for what is now the top 10. Stuart Vinez gets ahead of Breitenbach, who I think actually has got a slowdown, and that is lethal when you've got a train of cars like this, because you just get freight train from everyone who wants to find their way through. Neil Butler picking his way past Thomas Pugh as well, the reigning champion, up into the 13th place.
Yeah, I did have a look. I did have a look back, and yeah, Sam Van Ruler was fine going through into Blanchimont, but on the exit, the car just steered right. Now we're going to have a look here. This is the Twisted Racing Pro car from James Pearce, and that was why. Yeah, James Pearce came into Dior then, and that was why the Frenchman's car was up in the air. So attrition is definitely the word of the day. Dirk Boots has just had an off track, even with the fact he's got a 2.7 second lead at the moment, so he can breathe for the moment, but if he makes an even bigger slip up, then that could cause absolute mayhem for him, because anyone might remember what happened to Chris Thacker. Chris Thacker, his evening has got even worse. Both he, Ivo van der Linden, have been in the pits for nearly 3 minutes. So has James Pearce. So has Sam Van Ruler. Van der Broek has been in there for 5 minutes 23, and I think has called time. Tony van der Linden's been in there for nearly 6 minutes. Louis Boubier's been in there for over 6 minutes. We are at 15 cars that have been quite literally eliminated, and we're only, what, 7 minutes in? That's the curse that Spa-Francorchamps sometimes has, folks.
Yeah, you said it. Attrition is the name of the game. There's a look maybe from Stuart Viners into La Source. Juho Huhtinen under a bit of pressure from the BMW. Neil Butler just in the mix as well. Side by side as they run their way downhill to tick off another lap. There goes Stuart Viners in the BMW and Juho Huhtinen in the blue and white Ferrari up the hill. He's actually got a really compromised run. Here comes Neil Butler maybe having a look. He's had to really slow down not to cause a massive crash. James States, Johan Rain swapping places for second place just in front of this as well. We're right on board with that because they're side by side through Les Combes. Callum Beament moving his way past Harry Wills, or jostling for 5th place as well, running through Les Combes. James States now ahead of Johan Rains. 3.2 seconds is the gap to the reigning championship winner of Dirk Bounce, who's definitely made some steps forward in the off-season, and well, he's coming here to show his mettle and potentially, maybe in what is going to be 42 minutes time, take race to victory here at Spa, but that is a long way away and anything can happen between now and then. Don't forget pit stops in the mix as well yet to come, which can definitely throw a spanner into the works. But well, what is it? Four cars, five cars in this fight for second place. Oh, James States, he's got his work cut out for him if he wants to keep it.
Yeah, Callum Beament at the back end of this train, and when you look at the different manufacturers, we've got Lamborghini, BMW, and Mercedes. So 3 different manufacturers out of these 5 respective drivers, but you know, Slates is going to have to hang on to that second position, but Wills is getting a wriggle on. He's going for a possible opportunity on Gus Franken as we see the number 27, that is Archie Lanz, a little bit further back, and you can just see there is a lot of close quarter battling on this particular occasion at multiple points on the circuit. Archie Lanz currently rounding out the top 10, not too far behind the number 19 Ferrari of Carl Pearce. Stuart Winus is closing in on them in the number 61 BMW, and Harry Wills has got the move past Franken and now is going to go charging after Jerome Reigns, who got that absolute textbook start at the beginning of the race nearly 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, it really was. Just put his foot to the floor and was like, yeah, cool, in a bit, boys. I'm going to try and take the lead. I'm going to get away from the early lap carnage. Unfortunately, Dirk Bounce was able to catch up to him and excel. Harry Wills under a bit of pressure, or trying to put some pressure on Johan Rains, who's feeling the pressure. Drag race as they run their way through the Kemmel Straight. Harry Wills maybe picking up a little bit of slipstream from James States in front. Harry Wills is no stranger to sending a move to the outside, side by side between Callum Beament and Gus Franken, just in behind there. But Harry Wills around the outside, beautifully done there into 3rd place, just in behind Gus Franken. Callum Beament, it was Beament that was able to reign supreme in that particular skirmish. But Harry Wills moving his way up in a second, because that was James States, I believe, having a spin through Rivage, downhill, off cambered, and a Lamborghini. The weight transfer was not having that, and well, he rejoins in 6th.
I mean, even though it's a mid-mounted engine, rear-wheel drive vehicle, The Audi, I'll be completely honest, with Neil Butler, you know, we saw Butler in the opening race doing a very, very good job. The problem is the Lamborghini's a very, very different animal. It might share the same powertrain, but aerodynamically, it's a lot more aggressive in terms of the look of it and its aerodynamic efficiency, as there is a move a little bit up the order just in front. Archie Lands was trying to... Well, that was Stuart Wyness that got through. So Wyness got through on Lands. Now he's trying to hustle Carl Pearce along in the number 19. Hooten's stuck in the middle between a BMW and a Lamborghini sandwich right about now. And that's the battle for 11th, 12th and 13th. Reigns is trying to... Well, he's lost out to Harry Wills. And now Reigns is between a rock and a hard place, because here is Callum Beeman and there is Gus Franken. This trio are covered by about half a second through the bus stop chicane. Nice exit from all three of them. A little bit squirrely from Beeman on that particular occasion coming through the bus stop chicane. But Reigns, I think, is defending as if his life depended on it right now here, Zach.
Yeah, indeed so. And I mean, he's kind of got to be careful because he's got two cars to defend from. And James States, Kurt Van Hoenack and Navarro de Boiva, all of them are only about 3.5 seconds back. So he has got to be a little bit careful, but a podium for your home race, he's going to want to try and at least take it and give himself the best chance. But yeah, he is definitely defending as hard as possible. Now a good run from the Lamborghini. Callum Beeman has definitely got that Lamborghini under wraps. He's tamed the beast. And now up the Camel Straight, looking to the right-hand side. It'll give him the inside if Callum Beeman's brave enough on the brakes. Indeed, he is. Reigns sees it coming, hangs on the 36 machine there, side by side through, then into Malmedy, swings the advantage back the way of the Britishman of Callum Beeman. However, Reigns still keeping his foot into the outside of Malmedy, keeps that momentum swung into reverse. Surely it's got to go the way of Callum Beeman. However, Reigns is going to give it as good a go as possible. Little bit of a nose ahead, almost had the opportunity. Callum Beeman ahead, as once again they run their way downhill in towards No Name. He's into the podium places, snatches that P3 away from Johan Reigns, and well, now Beeman is on a charge. He's got to try and catch up 2.8 seconds to Harry Wills if he wants to improve his positions in this race.
Well, Harry Wills has been running in the 2 minutes 17.9s. I think he's the fastest driver out there. Fastest lap of the race by Harry Wills, who's about 3.3 seconds behind Dirk Bouts. It was a 2 minute 17.48, so that Mercedes has got a lot of prowess. Now, the good thing is, and I'm going to say it this way, Harry Wills is not under pressure. He will hopefully, more than likely, have clear air in front of him to try and chase Dirk Bouts down. And on the last lap, he took probably the best part of nearly 7/10 of a second out of him. So that gap is coming down. And it's going to come down significantly, especially when you put a naturally aspirated machine from a Falterbach with a V8 under its front bonnet. You're going to have a driver that's going to push the absolute limit. As, again, we are seeing so much jockeying for position, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to watch, and I'm sure if it ends in calamity, it might be a little bit humorous, but that's besides the point. For now, they're keeping it nice and clean, nice and tidy, and giving us some awesome entertainment to feast our eyes onto. Neil Butler versus Archie Lands in towards La Source. No movement there from the BMW. Bit of jostling just in the background as Marcel Breitenbach and Chris Chatterton decide who's going to come out for P13. It is going to go the way of the race one victor in that Mercedes. Chris Chatterton now trying to move up a couple more places and gain his way maybe towards the top 10. There's a car leaving the pit lane. Well, you've got to be careful of that. He's going to spit himself out right in the mix maybe of some of this action. And actually, no, to be fair, he's gotten away from it, gotten away with it for the most part. And well, just look at this. I would not want to be a car rejoining traffic in a train as large as this. He's still slow coming off the back of it. There's Chris Chatterton trying to tick off yet another place. Pulls out, tucks back in. And, well, he's not going to make the move on Jeremy de Boiva for now, biding his time, waiting to pick him off one by one.
Yeah, that's the thing, because we're probably at that point where I would say 15 to 20 minutes into the race, depending on who has really short-fueled the cars. And what I mean by that, folks, is that for those uninitiated to motorsport, as Harry Wills has an off-track, Chris Chatterton has an off-track, Marcel Breitenbach has an off-track, Van Hoenacker has got past Gus Franken, who's now dropped down to 8th place. So Gus Franken was at the sharper end of the field I think Gus Franken is not having a great time out there because everyone has been swarming all over the back bumper of the number 33. He started on the outside of row number 2, let's not forget. And between 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 9th to 15th, none of the drivers are any more than 0.4 of a second behind each other. That's ridiculously close, because what this could also show is that over the course of this race, I mentioned strategy. There is one thing I haven't mentioned: fuel saving. Because whilst they're getting the slipstream down through Blanchimont, not everyone's going to be at full throttle here, Zach.
No, 100% not. And while they're not necessarily saving a lap worth of fuel or a stint's worth of fuel, as Chris Chatterton, Jeremy De Boyver side by side through the bus stop, it is going to go the way of the Mercedes, who gets himself up into 12th place. But yeah, they're not necessarily, you know, trying to save a lap of fuel and do have that knock-on effect over hours and hours. It does, however, save them, you know, a couple of attempts in the pit lane. And, you know, if they can save, say, a litre or two of fuel, that's a litre or two of fuel they don't have to then refill by the time they get to the pit lane. Of course, you might be saying GT3s, they can go an hour into a race on a tank of fuel, no problem. What's a 50-minute race got to do? They are on 65% fuel tank capacity, which means they are forced to take a stop. Not only is the rulebook say they have to, they are forced to. So keep an eye out for who takes the shorter stops. And in a train like this, it can very easily make the difference. But Chris Chatterton, no thought of saving fuel. He is on a mission towards the front inside line as Archie Lange tries to give him the squeeze. However, Chatterton, confident in his stride, up into 11th place, and he's more interested in the track position more than the fuel saving at this stage, which can go either way. I suppose there's a spin into the background. That is Marcel Breitenbach. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, there were quite a few changes of position. Jeremy De Boyver has also gone off as well, drops down outside of the top 20. Oh, dearie me. It can be swings and roundabouts, and also with the fact, folks, that there's another thing that you probably might also be seeing, that seeing a few more shadows because the sun is very, very much setting. Neil Butler going, well, at least he wasn't sideways going off, but that's going to allow Chris Chatterton to go round the outside of him through into the next left-hander. Yeah, so I think probably a mistake there for Butler on that particular occasion. Nevertheless, he has made up eight positions from 19th. So, you know, Butler's making a steady resurgence through the field, but we've still got 32 minutes to go, and with that, 21 of the drivers, all the way down to the number 14 of Jeremy De Boyver, have yet to make their mandatory stop. So in media day, I think it's about who's going to be the bravest and who's going to blink first and who's going to blink last, Zach.
Well, now's the time, I guess, to test it, right? You're not throwing away a championship if you get it wrong. We're going to jump to a replay and just have a look as Neil Butler into the pit lane very early, in all fairness. And, well, this is Thomas Pugh. This is the fight amongst the midfield. And, well, that is just way too eager. And it's that knock-on effect, really. The Constantina, one hits one. Person in behind hits the other, hits the other, hits the other. It's that chain reaction, isn't it, Alex? And, well, that's how things happen sometimes. Approaching 20 minutes in this race, and Neil Butler, Marcel Breitenbach into the pit lane. Neil Butler, I don't think is sort of a forced pit stop. I think this is intentional, maybe to get himself out of the traffic. I mean, it's such a tight fight that he might just be better off getting some clear air. Yeah,
in the meantime, Gus Franken has got Chris Chatterton to his immediate right-hand side. And the number 16 will get the side draft now into Lecombe, sends it up the inside, neat and tidy pass there, stopped it on a sixpence and pulls away already through the exit of Lecombe, and now is gunning after Carl Pearce, who started 7th, currently rounds out the top 8 positions. So Wills and Chatterton are the ones on the move at the moment. Harry Wills has got that gap down to the race leader to just a fraction over 2 seconds, and I'm sure that Dirk Bouts will be thinking, what do I need to do to keep Harry Wills the hell away from me?
Indeed. So Chris Chatterton, a brave move into the inside of P1. Carl Pearce even braver to try and hang it around the outside. There they go. You don't often see that. Is it going to end in calamity? No. Chris Chatterton gets his Mercedes ahead, up now into 8th place, and the resurgence from the Race 1 victor could see him actually catapult himself quite far up. Dirk Bouts, Harry Wills, as you say, that gap is coming down. The last lap was a 2:18.45 going the way of Dirk Bouts, a 2:18.38 going the way of Harry Wills. So it's a couple of tenths here and there. The main thing, I think, Alex, is going to be the strategy. It's either going to be Dirk Bout's saviour or his burden. It could drag Harry Wills back into the mix. However, Gus Franken is going for the move on Carl Pearce, who has just got his rhythm knocked from Chris Chatterton, and now the Ferrari to the outside of yet the other fast corner on the circuit. Gus Franken now ahead of him, and that's the thing when it comes to pack racing, isn't it, Alex? As soon as one person finds a way through, anyone else behind is like, you know what, I'm going to try my luck. And for Carl Pearce, his confidence was knocked, his rhythm was knocked after being overtaken by Chatterton, and it was just that bit easier for Franken to find a way through.
But also when they went into Blanchimont, Carl Pearce did the right thing. He put on the brakes and he let Gus Franken through because he knew that Franken would get the run on him come hell or high water. And now, being the hunter instead of the hunted is a completely different proposition. Now, Pearce can try and get one up on Gus Franken as we're going through, on board, Eau Rouge. Now over the crest, through Hadnion, through into the kink here on the Kemmel straightaway, and now the Ferrari is going to start stretching its legs. Look at the closing speed. Carl Pearce pulls to the outside of Gus Franken, down the Kemmel straight. Is it going to be enough for him to get the side draft? No, it does not, but is Carl Pearce going to hang it around the outside? He does. Goes through into the second part of Les Combes. That was a neat pass on Gus Franken. So great racing respect between these two battling over ninth.
That's what you like to see. It always takes two to tango, and while you often, attribute the praise to the attacker, in some cases, you've got to give some preps to the person defending, the person being overtaken, because it takes some respect and it takes some humility to be able to go side by side like that. And well, great mutual respect. Duckman diving, Franken maybe having a bit of a look into Pouan. He thinks better of it, which is probably the wiser decision to have made. We're approaching halfway through this 15-minute race and still waiting for the majority of the pit stops. And well, after the pit stops, we've got some pretty long battles here, Alex. I would expect that a lot of them are going to be dissipated come the end of that pit lane sequence.
Or you might see people that are battling over position, such as Lindmo, Lanz and Sims, as we see now. That's the battle for 11th in the field. It might be a case that does Harry Wills go a little bit longer than Dirk Bout's and do the inhumane and disrespectful undercut. But we could see quite a few people pitting at the same time, so they'll continue those battles onwards, but one can sometimes jump the other in the pit lane phase.
It's easily done, and it doesn't take much at all. I mean, again, it's a couple of tenths swing. If you can save yourself a couple of litres of fuel, brilliant, banging. You are going to maybe get the jump because, you've got less fuel to top back up to see you to the end of the race. So we'll wait and see as to how the pit stop strategy plays its way out. Of course, it's a new season, so there might be a new strategical dynamic at play. And, well, we're new to it. The drivers are new to it. Now's the time to practice during the press day. Of course, then in a week's time, we take to the Nürburgring for round number 1. That is, of course, going to be an endurance round. We'll come back to that in just a second, actually, in all fairness, because Dean Timms and Archie Lands are going side by side through the Kemmel Straight. Also just in front, maybe a BMW getting lapped, so that could get in the way just a little bit. Dean Timms with the nose ahead and up into 12th place. Nicely done from the 46 machine. But yeah, Alex, we've got a different format in terms of this season. For the Nürburgring, it's an endurance round, which is just one 75-minute race from start to finish. Then for round number 2, we go to Silverstone, which is a sprint. Then to Imola, which is a sprint. Le Mans then is an endurance. Zolder a sprint. Monza a sprint. Bathurst an endurance. Long Beach a sprint. Daytona a sprint. And then Sebring to round off the championship for an endurance. I think it's nice to sort of split up the season like that into the format that we're seeing now, the 25 and the 50, and then just the one long swoop as Chris Chatterton, Stuart Vinez jostle over 7th place. It's nice to mix things up. It adds two different sort of dynamics to the season. It means that some people maybe are more accustomed to endurance races. They'll then excel in those rounds. More people may be accustomed to sprint formats will then, excel in the sprint rounds. I think it's a good change to make for Season 5.
It definitely is, and it'll, like Chris Chatterton said in the post-race interview for Race 1, he said, I'm really looking forward to the endurance side of things. And that's what these cars are built for. But in the meantime, as Hakan Lindmo closing in on Gus Franken and Carl Pearce, as they, of all places, don't start going swiping from one side to the other, going through into Blanchimont. Harry Wills is now within half a second of the race leader as Lindmo goes towards the outside of Franken into the bus stop chicane. Lindmo is harder on the brakes. He's going to get the undercut as Dean Timms now pulls into pit lane just past the halfway point, and Harry Wills is on a charge. And there they are, going through Eau Rouge and Ravignon onto the Kemmel Straight. Dirk Bouts knows that his time is numbered as Harry Wills has got an absolute run and a half of speed down the Kemmel Straight. Is he going to pull the pin on the grenade? Not quite yet, as they go through into Malmedy, and then although head into Malmedy now, out of Les Combes, down the dip into Rivage, and then into the next left-hander here at No Name. But Harry Wills, I think, is, you know, an overtake isn't always going to be at a particular point. You know, you can't just say at one corner, yeah, I'm half a second behind, I'll make up that distance easy and catch up. No, you're gathering that momentum over maybe half a lap and a half maybe, to try and you close in. And as the great late Murray Walker, who earlier on this week, it was the 2nd year anniversary of his passing, once said, it's easy enough to chase someone down, but it's even more difficult to pass them.
100% it is, and Harry Wills needs to be careful not to lose that momentum. I mean, he's been chasing after Dirk Bouts for sort of the last 20 minutes, and he's had sensational pace. Now he's got to be careful not to start to follow Dirk Bouts and slow himself down, because then he's going to lose that advantage that he once had, and then it'll, you know, settle itself into a stalemate. He's got to keep the ground running. He's got to send moves here or there, maybe try and take advantage of where he's a little bit quicker. I mean, well, we'll have to wait and see as to how that dynamic plays its way out. And obviously the pit lane sequence not too far away for the two leaders, so maybe Harry Wills might not have to do anything in terms of hard work at all. But I would like to see a fight for the race lead, yes please, between Dirk Bouts and Harry Wills. And well, where can you do it? Pretty much everywhere when it comes to Spa. We're seeing in the top left of our screen the fight between Pierce and Lindmo in towards Blanchimont, and now into the final chicane, of course. Carl Pierce and the Ferrari trying to defend from the Norwegian side by side into the bus stop. The Mercedes goes to the outside. That will give him the inside for the second part. If he can keep the line, gets given the space by the Ferrari, nearly gets his nose chopped off, but great defense from Carl Pearson. Into the pit lane comes Kurt Van Hohenacker. We've got a very, very wide pit window here. I mean, it seems that people came in sort of like 5-10 minutes ago. People are coming in now, and we've still got the majority of the field yet to come into the pit lane, Alex. I think this is it's a very long pit lane sequence, and people are trying a lot of different things.
Yeah, they do say that variety is the spice of life, Zach, and that can very much be the same way that you can talk about pit stops, as we're on board with James Slates, who is closing in on Jerome Reyes for fourth position as they go through into Les Combes. Always love this kind of camera shot where the dashboard of the car that you're riding on board with is blurred, but then you get a crystal clear view of the vehicle up ahead. And this battle between these two drivers, as Jerome Reyes nearly losing the back end ever so slightly through Rivage into No Name at turn number 11, and down the dip, and then the blast up or down, whichever way you want to call it, through into the double left here at Pouhon. And you could tell that Slates was just lifting off and modulating that throttle through Pouhon, just making sure that the back end of that Lamborghini does not step out. I mean, we did see multiple cars having that drama as through into the Piff Baff chicane they go, heading in towards Stavelot. Slates is giving Reigns no opportunity to breathe right now, because the gap between them has been anywhere between 3 to 4.5 tenths of a second. And this battle, I think, is going to wage on. I think these two will come into the pits at the same time. And can Slates get the jump on Reigns in the pit stop phase? That can quite clearly happen.
We'll soon find out, but a brilliant fight, and that's exactly what you need to do, as you say. Don't let them breathe. Be unrelenting. Harry Wills gets ahead of Dirk Bouts. He pulls his way into the pit lane, so that is the catalyst of now what could be a very interesting turn of events in terms of the pit lane. Carl Pierce and Haakon Lindmo still battling it out over 8th place, and now into the bus stop chicane once more. It's deja vu. There's a car off there. That is James Slates off. He was recently in a fight with Johan Reigns, as once again the Norwegian tries it to the outside of the bus stop. No way through. He's got to be careful though, because Archie Lands is breathing down his neck. So he was. It's now Gus Franken breathing down his neck. But that's a shame for James Slates, because I was looking forward to that fight between himself and Johan Reigns. Fortunately, though, Chris Chatterton's on the scene.
All I can say, one word: Lamborghini. Unfortunately for for Jerome Slates there, for James Slates, it just goes to show that you can make the slightest mistake. I'm not too sure if there was an incident between the pair of them as Hakan Lindmo closing in on Carl Pearce. At the moment, the top 9 is Chris Chatterton going through on Jerome Reigns, and they tangle, and they are both around. That was the battle for P3, and that is going to allow Stuart Winers to get through. And there is Chris Chatterton. There is Chris Chatterton. I think, behind. That is Pearce. Oh, and Reigns that was a bit of an unsafe rejoin, I have to say. Jerome Reigns should have waited a little bit longer, because it was Pearce and Lindmo coming through Lecombe, and Reigns could have nearly taken both out on the spot by that rejoin.
It's always sketchy when you're desperate to get yourself back onto the circuit, but you do have to take an air of caution. iRacing does give you the option F3 on the black box to pull up the relative to other cars on circuit, so you can pick yourself a nice window to pull back into, but it's never easy, obviously, and sometimes you do get it just that little bit wrong. If in doubt, though, stay put, be predictable, and let other people find their way around you. Interesting incident, though, and unfortunately that spells an unfortunate sort of halts on some people's progress in this race. However, Carl Pearce and Lindmo still fighting it out once more, and now they've been promoted a couple of places, so fortune's gone their way. Callum Beeman into the pit lane from second place on the field. And, well, we're still waiting for a lot of pit stops. Here comes Lindmo using that Mercedes grunt to pull alongside the Ferrari in towards Bonchemont, this time with the inside. Beautifully done. Lindmo, though, trying to go around the outside, forced to tuck into situ, and now defensive goes the Mercedes, trying to find the gap. Pulling out late to the left-hand side, though, goes the Ferrari. Now outside, it'll give him the inside. He gets given the space because into the pit lane comes Lindmo, Franken, Reigns, Sasthemoinen all in, Trish Chatterton all in. Seems that this is the conventional pit stop time, because I guess they've just run their tanks empty. But Harry Wills out there all by himself, Lightning McQueen style.
He's Billy No Mates at the moment, is Harry, isn't he? To be completely honest with you, but this will give him an opportunity, as Cole Pearce is about 27.7 seconds behind. So as that V8 rumbles its way down through Rivage and then in towards No Name, this is where it's going to be quite crucial, because if Harry Wills is coming in on the next lap, he's got to be absolutely on point. He cannot put a foot wrong, because both he and Carl Pearce are the only two drivers now that have yet to have their mandatory pit stop. So even with the 65% allowed full tank capacity on these cars, as Callum Beeman in the number 6 Lamborghini makes his way out of the pit lane and onto the Kemmel Straight at Flat Chat. This is going to be quite crucial for both Pearce and for Wills on when they decide to pit. And considering the fact here, Zach, we've got 16 minutes to go, I would probably hazard a guess that maybe Harry Wills and Carl Pearce will either be in on this lap or the lap after.
It's a long lap here at Spa, though, so it must be tricky to save all of that fuel. Fair play to them for doing it, particularly as to Harry Wills and catching Dirk Bounce as well. I thought he wouldn't have been in conservation mode at all, but, well, there we are. He's gone an extra lap, and that could definitely help him. Three-way fight, though, for his 10th place at the moment. Archie Lands looking to the inside of Chris Chatterton and Gus Franken. There we go. Brilliant move. 2 into 1. And Archie Lands up now into 10th. There it comes Harry Wills down into the pit lane for his mandatory stop. It'll be pretty much a splash and dash. He's done himself a lot of favours here, Alex, by going long, because it means he's not got a lot of fuel to top up. There goes Chris Chatterton to the inside of Rivage versus Gus Franken. They're side by side. The Lamborghini able to look around the outside because of the late lunge from the Mercedes. Downhill in towards No Name. The send to the inside from the Lamborghini. Almost touching, but Chris Chatterton confident and able to use that outside momentum to swing his way ahead. Bit of a wiggle just to say, come on, get our act together. Let's move forward. Let's try and stay on the back. But now it's a race against time. Dirk Bounce, Callum Beeman and Harry Wills. Who's going to come out in front when it comes to the pit lane sequence? In fact, Callum Beeman has got himself a couple of seconds clear of Dirk Bounce, so the race is on against time.
And also, what's more important, Callum Beeman is making his way through the exit of Blanchimont as we speak. And I haven't seen the timers start up yet for Wills and Pierce. Now it starts for Wills. This is going to be very, very close. Pit stops have been anywhere between 15.8 and around 17.5 seconds. So how long is Harry Wills going to be in the pits? Well, I think it's going to be the case. He's going to be filling up 15.93 seconds. So now he's got to get to the end of that pit lane. I think it's going to be the fact that Callum Beeman has done the undercut on Harry, because Callum Beeman will be coming up Eau Rouge and Radion at full racing speed.
Where is he?
And I think Harry might have stayed ahead. The gap looks to have stabilised at around about 6 seconds. So there is Harry. He's making his way down the Kemmel Straight. Callum Beeman is a second and a half behind him and is closing. There he is in the back of shot on the picture-in-picture. So that means that Carl Pearce has dropped all the way down. Carl Pearce was in the pits for 23.5 seconds. And he's dropped all the way down to outside of the top 10. But the race lead is going to be hotly contested because Callum Beeman has got a full head of steam. And Harry Wills knows that he's got to fight for the race victory.
Here we go then, the race is on. Callum Beeman, Harry Wills, Chris Chatterton ahead of Archie Lands, but I'm looking forward to that one. Callum Beeman, of course, with that momentum, he's back into the rhythm of things after doing his outlap, while Harry Wills was in the pit lane, slightly warmer tyres, potentially going the way of Beeman, but this is going to be a titanic finale, I am sure. The final 30 minutes of race number 2 of the IMB WSL GT3 EU Media Day here at the circuit, the Spa-Francorchamps. What a race it's been so far. Kurt Van Hoenacker ahead of Neil Butler. All eyes potentially are going to be peeled to that gap between P1 and P2, stabilising just under a second, but any fluctuation in that could see Callum Beeman potentially going for the move. We're following on this fight, Johan Reigns versus Jarmo Sastamoinen, and now the Audi R8 has a bit of a look. He doesn't really know where to go, inside, outside into the Piff Paff chicane, tapping the rear end of the BMW in front, and Dean Timms is there on the scene as well. He's arriving, trying to put some pressure on Neil Butler. Kurt Van Hoenacker not separated by too much either. A lot of battles, a lot of narratives, and a lot of storylines to talk about in, well, not that long left in this race. Time is not on a lot of people's sides here, Alex.
No, James Slates has been in the
all
pits for
10
over
from
8
Neil
minutes.
Butler.
And that was on Van Hoenacker, and that was for 4th place. And now we go back to Sastamoinen, battling along with Jerome Reigns, and there is Dean Timms, who has made up. He's got past Sastamoinen, now up into 12th place. From 36 on the grid goes the number 46 BMW, and now he's going after the reverse grid pole sitter Jerome Reigns, who is now in 11th place. So Dean Timms has kept his nose very, very clean, but Sastamoinen with a look up the inside through into La Source nearly gives Dean Timms a little tap on the right rear, but Timms lives to fight another day.
Indeed, so didn't have the best of race ones, but he's moved himself up 23 positions over the course of race 2. Jarmo Sastamoinen now makes it 22 as he's fighting, or was fighting actually, with Johan Reigns. Now Dean Timms able to get himself ahead. But this fight there, maybe Dean Timms looking, is he close enough for ascend into Laycom? He's tucked up, pulls out late to try and get the best advantage possible. He's not quite bold enough on the brakes. Timothy Vandenbroek into the pit lane. Unfortunately, we've lost a good chunk of the field to incidents and mistakes and pit lane, of course. So now the fight is amongst the top 18. Marcel Breitenbach making up the rear of the main field in this race. Only 10.5 minutes left to go, and we're following on this fight. Very, very close fight, it must be said, between these guys. Also Harry Wills, Callum Beeman, that gap back under a second. Lots of fights, and yeah, I don't know. It's been a very, very interesting race too. Not too dissimilar in all fairness to race number 1. However, we've also had
we've just
added,
had one go off.
And there we go, Gus Franken. No surprise, it's a Lamborghini.
That is going to be the meme that everyone is getting, or the gift that everyone's going to take. Oh, look, it's a Lamborghini. Oh, look, another Lamborghini from tonight's opening, 2 races here on Media Day. I mean, Gus Franken was doing such a great job, was battling at the sharp end, but now that's given place number 25 for Dean Timms, who now is looking at the top 10 because Jerome Reigns is being really hustled going through into Blanchimont. Timms will leave it until the last moment that he dares to try and put the anchors on going in through to the bus stop chicane. So is he going to go to the inside? Is he going to go to the outside? He stays behind Reigns going through the bus stop chicane. Some nice strategic work, nice bit of wheel work there from Dean Timms. As now the run to Eau Rouge will continue very, very shortly as they head up towards the source. But I think that Dean Timms is teeing up a move on Jerome Reigns, and of all places, it's going to be coming out of Radiant, down the Kemmel Straight and into Les Combes. That'll be his best opportunity around this circuit.
I agree. I think it's where we've seen the majority of our moves, and it's the easiest place to do it. As long as you can get a good run off of Les Sources, as we cut to this fight for 6th, actually. Linmo and Jean Breitenbach side by side into Les Combes. The advantage at the moment goes the way of Breitenbach. However, they're side by side as they run their way through once again into Malmedy. Harry Wills and Callum Beeman have swapped places for the race lead. Harry Wills relinquishing it, going the way of Callum Beeman, who's been closing that gap since the beginning of the pit stop phase. And now Harry Wills, well, it comes toppling off what was once a fairly secure throne at the top of the Timon Tower. Now the race is on. If he wants to win this race, Callum Beeman's going to make him work for it.
Oh yes, 100%, because Callum Beeman was 2.5 tenths of a second quicker than Harry Wills. We're going to have a look at a brief replay now. And this is what happens. Oh, Harry Wills, I think the back end's going to step out. Yes, it does, and he catches it. He was a very, very lucky boy, was Harry Wills. Oh my goodness. You know what, I'm going to be... The thing is, we're going to have to ask Harry Wills whether he's going to need to check his underwear after that one, because that's not the first spin he's had tonight.
I'm sure Daniel Costello was loving my face cam looking at that, because that was bizarre. Fair play to Harry Wills, right? I mean, we often knock him because, you know, one mistake and it all unravels for him, but that was great car control, and now he's breathing down the rear wing of Callum Beeman, and he's not going to let that mistake phase him. He's determined, he's motivated, he wants that race victory, and he's not got long left to get it. Around a long lap like this, we've only got a handful of laps left. He needs that backwards momentum as they dip down the hill through a Rouge, then rise up the right hand over the crest at Radion. Has he got the slingshot? Has he got the run? He might well have. He pulls out to the left-hand side of Callum Beeman through the Camel King now. It'll give him the long way round as soon as they arrive to Les Combes. But has Harry Wills and that Mercedes got the grunt to maybe, just maybe, be ahead before the braking zone? You can bet your bottom dollar that Callum Beeman is going to send it late on the brakes. Indeed he does. Callum Beeman back up the inside. Harry Wills keeps the long way round, gives him the inside for the second part. There he goes. He's now ahead before the turning in point of Malmedy. Harry Wills back into the race lead.
You know what, when they were side by side, I had flashbacks back to Mansell versus Senna, millimeters apart in 1991. That was absolutely brilliant. And the good thing was Harry Wills had the confidence because he not only had the slipstream behind Beeman, but also that little bit of side draft. I talked about that earlier. That was that little bit of extra push that he needed, as now we see Jeremy De Boiver going toe-to-toe with Gus Franken. This is the battle for the last position in the top 15, as we've got coming up to 6 minutes on the timer remaining, so around about 3 laps to go, probably not including this one. And we're on to lap number 19. De Boiver really had Gus Franken at his mercy, but decided, but you know what? It's not probably going to be the easiest place to pass at Les Combes when you've got one Lamborghini versus another.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to equal chassis, there's going to be variations in terms of setups and things like that, but the foundation is that you're in the same car, you've got the same strengths and weaknesses as Jarmo Sastimoinen versus the Ferrari, German power versus Italian. As it stands, Carl Pearce is able to hang on in the picture-in-picture. That's the fight for the lead. Callum Beeman, Harry Wills, they've been chopping and changing, and also Dirk Bounce. Only 1.5 seconds off this fight. Could we see a 3-horse race for the lead come the final moments of this race? Dirk Bout lost out quite a lot in the pit stop phase, it must be said, but now he's on a resurgence, and any more battling between the leaders could reel the reigning AM champion back into the field of play. Here they are live once more. Harry Wills, Callum Beeman. That Lamborghini, it's quicker down the straight than a lot of other cars, but it seems that Mercedes just have the edge.
They do on the straight line. They always have done. I mean, looking at the previous lap times, it was a 2-minute 18.93 for Harry Wills, 2-minute 19.47 for Callum Beeman, and then Dirk Bouts punches in a 2-minute 18.64. So those three drivers, in terms of delta lap time, covered by about 1.1 seconds between them, with Bouts clearly being the fastest. So never say never, but that gap starts to extend a little bit now to about just over 2 seconds between Beeman and Bouts, and Beeman again now has got a second wind, a second head of speed, as Harry Wills will definitely not want to be doing the Stuttgart sideways like he was doing earlier on, because otherwise if he does that, that could open the door not just for Beeman, but also for Dirk Bouts. Absolutely,
the pressure is on Harry Wills. Now is the time for him not to be Harry Wills. He's got to compose himself. He's got to drive that machine like no other time. I mean, he does like to take to high-speed circuits. His win, over the course of the last couple of seasons have come at the likes of Monza and things like that. So he definitely does like this style of circuit. He's proven that right now, leading the way with only a handful of minutes left to go. I think it's going to be 2 more at the line. They're going to start their penultimate lap at the end of this one, and then of course after that it will be the dash to the checker, and it could definitely go either way. Don't count out Dirk Bouts at all. An outside shot at this race victory through Kerkreuth now into Blanchimont. Callum Beeman not quite close enough, but it's all stepping stones. This entire circuit could be used as just that momentum builder, that stepping stone for that run up the hill and towards Lake Park. That's going to be incredibly crucial, to be honest with you. But it is now about who is going to be the bravest of the brave. Wills needs to make that rear end of that Mercedes as wide as humanly possible. Beeman needs to be on the ruthless, controlled, aggressive nature, using that Lamborghini to its fullest. Now, one of the other things that we haven't really talked about is that when you are in the slipstream of another vehicle, you are going to have an aerodynamic imbalance, which means that the car will feel a little bit looser, especially when you're going to the braking zones, especially when you're going alongside another car. Your car might be faster, but you have got the bigger ratio of chance of that back end to step out if you put a foot wrong. For sure, and obviously that is the even though it's a sim, there is still the scientific sort of theory behind some things, and yeah, obviously you don't want to fall victim to them at all, and it's something that sims nowadays really do replicate quite well. I mean, you go to open wheels and you've got the dirty air, and you go over the hump and you can feel the floor and the ground effect start to stall, because, well, you've got that influx of high pressure air back underneath the car. So, there definitely is that dynamic to think about. So you've got to keep it clean. You've got to keep yourself on the toes. However, a very poor run through Pouon for Harry Wills could invite Callum Beeman to have a bit of a look now to the left-hand side in towards the Piff Paff chicane. The Lamborghini very, very agile. Is it agile enough to soar his way to the inside now for the next left-hander? He retakes the race lead. Harry Wills, though, keeping his foot into the outside. It'll become the inside for Stavolo 1. And now the Mercedes comes back up the inside, trying tooth and nail to defend that race lead. Callum Beeman's attack has been thwarted, or has it, through Kerkreuth? Callum Beeman sends the move back to the inside. Now it's a race of sheer speed on that run in towards Blanchimont and then into the bus stop chicane. Harry Wills and his Mercedes seem to have the advantage, and while now he seems to have his nose ahead, however, Callum Beeman, he's brave, he's bold, he's brilliant on that brake pedal. Could he go for the move into the bus stop? Now's the time to find out, because after this the white flag will be in the air. Wills and Beemont not that far apart. Bouts has closed. That gap was 2 seconds. It's now 1.2. White flag now will be in the air, because Wills has got a head of steam going into La Source for the final time. Lap number 22 of what has been a rather enthralling IMB Racewear World Series League GT3 EU Media Day here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in the Stavelot region of Belgium.
Beeman's got probably a handful of opportunities still to go here, Zach, but Wills has got the legs stretched to the absolute limit on that Mercedes, but Beeman's going to come back at him at Lecon.
Indeed he is. He's not quite got the legs on the straight, and he's got to attack in Sector 2. However, he might have a look. He's just a couple of car lengths too far back, trying to psych out his opponent, spot his braking point. The middle sector is the big gainer for that Lamborghini, and you can see just how much he closes. All he needs is one crack in the defense from Harry Wills, and he will pounce on it.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a case of, it's not if, it's when he pulls the trigger, because he's going to have to set Harry Wills up, and Wills now is at that point where Beeman is a couple of car lengths. Not even that. That's a hell of a run for that Lamborghini as they're going to go in towards Pouon for the final time. Half a car length, not even that between the pair. That gap is absolutely minute, and Beeman knows that Wills is the one that's going to feel the pressure as they go through into the chicane for the final time.
Oh! He's there. Callum Beeman had a look. Harry Wills was just a little bit wide. He's ruined his momentum and being a little bit desperate, and now it's just flat out to the bus stop chicane. Callum Beeman needs an awesome run off this. He needs to maybe be a bit desperate, pushing the limits of the circuit, nearly dipping the wheel into the gravel trap. Harry Wills a bit shaky. He's shaky. Here comes Callum Beeman, though. That Lamborghini might just have the run. The final run now in towards the bus stop chicane, and the two leaders are separated by absolutely nothing. Blanchimont for the final time. Callum Beeman's last chance to close the gap, practically pushing the Mercedes through. Has Harry Wills got it to hang on to? He's going to go defensive anyway, inside, outside. Which way's the Lamborghini going to go? He's late on the brakes, and now Callum Beeman, his final chance at the race lead. He's going to send the move. Harry Wills gives him the space. Now who can put their foot to the floor first? Callum Beeman, Harry Wills can run to the line. Who's going to see the checkered first? It's going to go to Wills, who takes victory here for race number 2 of the IMB WSL GT3 EU Championship here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. 30,000th of a second, Alex. That was monumental.
I knew for a fact that Beeman would be going towards the outside. It was the only opportunity he had. Wills got the back end of that Mercedes got happy at least twice. More importantly, going through nearly one of the fastest parts of this circuit, and Harry Wills bringing the show with the donuts to celebrate. One of the closest wins, I think, on any IMB Racewear World Series League event, irrespective of the fact it's media day. Well deserved, but you have to give a big shout out to Callum Beeman. He pushed Wills right up until the death.
I think I've got a vein popping out my forehead. It is, I can feel it. That is how intense that final lap was. Wow. Harry Wills almost lost it, and celebratory donuts in full effect. Yes, as you say, it's only media day, but they went out there, they had fun, and they showed us just a glimpse of what's to come over the course of the next 10 weeks. I, for one, am very, very looking forward to that. 50 minutes, and it came down to the final corner. It came down, Alex, to who put their foot down first. Harry Wills, and that Mercedes was able to do it and see the checker flag first. What a race we had. Bring on the season. I can't wait.
You know how far that was? That was probably about the length of Harry Wills' front splitter.
That's
honestly, probably how minimal that I've seen kart races separated between first and second between two people like that. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, yeah, attrition was the name of the game in terms of what happened with the majority of our competitors. You know, we had, I think it was 26 drivers out of 40 that made it to the checkered. It's such a difficult circuit to tame, but we saw that with Wills, despite nearly having a couple of moments, I mean, the biggest moment was sideways through No Name, just past the 35-minute point, where he nearly lost it again. But it was just two modern-day gladiators in GT3 armor going toe-to-toe, mano-a-mano, and we got a fight, and that's exactly what is going to set the tone for Season 5.
It is. Well, we're going to take another look as to what happened on that final lap. Just look at how close it is. The naked eye can even call that. You've got to get a slow-mo look it's half a car length, if that, as they cross the line. You know, I mentioned cars already today. I'm going to mention it again. Think of the, Chick Hicks, the King, and Lightning McQueen side by side on that run to the line. And literally, just the tongue, just the smidge across the line first, and that is all it took. 30 thousandths, 3/100ths of a second, a third of a tenth, however you want to put it. That was close. And what a way to end off the media day. What a way to round off 2 races here at Spa. And as we've said, surely it's only going to be just as good from here on out, because looking at the calendar, Alex, we're in for some really, really good races.
And also the mixture of the format as well, with the dual race format and the endurance races, which we're going to get a really nice dynamic and a real understanding of how much these drivers can be tested over the course of a 10-week season. Of course, the drop scores will come into effect after this. The EU ranking will be decided for Pro, Pro-Am, and Am. But yeah, can't wait to see what happens.
Here we go then, 50 minutes of racing action for race number 2. The top 20 were reversed, and it was Harry Wills and Callum Beeman separated by nothing across the line. Dirk Bout, after getting a fantastic start, only 3rd for the reigning AM champion. Neil Butler, Kurt Van Hoenacker, your top 5 with Hickon Lindmo, and Chris Chatterton fighting to the end over 6th place. Archie Lands in P8, Gene Brayton back in P9. Dean Timms rounds off your top 10, with Carl Pierce, Johan Range just in behind that. Jeremy De Boiver, Gus Frank and Thomas Pugh, your top 15, Marcel Brayton back, Simon Dodd, and Jarmo Sastamoinen, your top 18. Anyone behind that really didn't get off to the best of races. You can see there, Jarmo Sastamoinen a lap off the lead, and it only grows from there. Timothy Vanderbroek, Sam Van Ruler, Mark Fleming, Lewis Boubier, Ivan van der Linden, Navarro De Boiver, Chris Thacker, James States, Matthias de Groot, Stuart Vines, Tony Vander, Lucas Romano, I should say, Ashraf Al-Haddad, Father Zeal, Joho Hootonen after a podium in race 1, only 33rd in race 2. James Pearce, Perdreau, Lemkins, Reynolds, Knockout, Trope, and Diede de Vlaming round off the 40-car field. Alex, wow. Again, I can only speak praises about this race. However, we're going to take a word with the man himself, Harry Wills. Hello and welcome, mister. Talk us through that. That was, you still got to be shaken, surely.
Oh, that was... I don't know what to say about that. I haven't felt that way since the last race down here. I'm obviously there's a lot changed with the new build in regards to the cars, the way they handle things like that. And I haven't really, unfortunately, been able to put a lot of practice in this week. So I've kind of scrabbled something together. And I think what I've taken out of that set is it eats tyres. Just eats them. Just eats tyres. And I don't know. I'm just sort of I was really on it in that one. I didn't expect to be coming into press day and having to drive that hard, but I'll give that pretty much everything then.
We saw. You were fighting for it. A couple of wiggles here and there. I mean, it cost you a podium in race 1. Almost gave Callum Beeman the look to the outside at the bus stop in race 2. But you managed to hang on, and that is, I guess, what counts. Big confidence boost going into the season then, I suppose?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan of the Mercedes out of all the cars, and it's had its ups and downs, and it's got some serious grunt, which is nice because it's got the whole muscle car thing going where it's not particularly great in the corners, but we've got so much in a straight line and so much off the corner if you can get it all hooked up. So it feels great. I mean, I think it's looking promising for the season. While I am here, I want to say massive thank you to you guys for being able to bring us every bit of the action. I want to thank every single driver that takes part in the series that we put together week in, week out. And as of press day, it's press day. Things are going to happen. We've just had a new release, a new update of cars, setups aren't working, blah blah blah. I think if what we got out of this race was exactly kind of what we anticipated. And hopefully we can build off of that into round 1 next week as all the drivers put some time in, and obviously we go to a slightly more challenging track next week.
Yeah, I mean, Spa is no mean feat at all. But talking of tracks, actually, you and the other admins, you put together quite the calendar. Nürburgring, Silverstone, I can't wait for Imola, the Circuit de la Sarthe, Zolder, Monza, Bathurst, Long Beach, Daytona, and Sebring. Quite a lot of the American sprint to the end, of course, but a nice variety of open, wide circuits. Then, obviously, the tight and twisty ones, the likes of Imola and Zolder. Good mix, and, of course, the split format as well. You guys have done some good changes going into Season 5.
Yeah, I think we've always got to try and mix up and keep it fresh for people. You know, bring in a different format of racing. The 75-minute thing, I'm hoping is going to bring in that element of tyres, because obviously that's something we haven't really had in previous seasons. But obviously with the way these cars do sort of work their tyres, and obviously now you can change tyres during fueling, obviously still having potential, you know, overlap of timing while the tyres are going on. It could bring that into play. You know, and also bringing in a few different American tracks at the end of the season. I think the one on there that just sort of gives me there's two actually that give me the heebie-jeebies. It's next week at Nordschleife and obviously Long Beach. The tracks we've always raced at Nordschleife. I've never had a league race, I don't think, at Long Beach. So, yeah, I'm nervous of that one. That's the one that's got me a bit like, ooh, how's that going to go? But no, I can't wait for it. Really looking good. Just to everybody out there, if you are having a look at this and wondering whether there's something you want to do, there is a couple of spaces left. I think out of a 60-car grid, we're sitting on just under the 50-car entries. So there is a couple of spots left if you do want to take part. And obviously, we get to do it all again in about 2 hours. So isn't that fun?
Yeah, but you're going to be buzzing. You got the adrenaline crash between now and the US, and then you got to do it all over again. Speaking though, mainly focusing on the EU. You know, you're coming off a high off press day. You know, it's a bit early to say, obviously, but what are you aspiring for over the next 10 weeks?
Try and not put it on its roof as much as possible, really. If I can not dent the roof, I mean, the rest of the car's going to get quite heavily dented, of course it is, but the roof, as long as the roof stays intact, no, I mean, I don't know. I got a real, genuinely, off of today, and I've done very little, and I had done very little practice because I've been moving house and various things. That Mercedes just felt good. Just had something about it, you know. It was very nose. I need to obviously dial out a little bit of oversteer with the rear. That's cooking tyres. That's having an effect on it. But if I can get that balance right, I'm quite excited really, because last season that Mercedes wasn't. No, I'd rather have picked a Mini to drive around there, I think.
Fair enough. Easier to top though, I guess, is the Mini, but you know, to each their own. Well, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, Harry. It was a pleasure talking to you, and well, we wish you the best of luck for the season.
No, thank you very much, guys, and really thank you for putting your time into this and making it happen. I think it's the start of something really cool this season. Looking forward to it, and of course, looking forward to doing it again in a couple of hours. I'll keep some high caffeine related energy drinks going just to keep that edge. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we get into it next time. Dave, you see me? It's not going to happen. Guys, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
And you. Thank you very much. Harry Wills, big man, sort of at the top of the WSL, and of course, race winner in race number 2. Alex, well, what an evening we had there. What are your final thoughts before we wrap up?
Bring on season 5. That's all I can say. If this is anything to set the tone for season 5 of the IMB Racewear World Series League GT3 EU Championship, you know, the US one was an absolute corker for season 4. I'm looking forward to seeing what it brings, and yeah, Media Day happens all over again, but for the US contingent, which includes Harry. He's always a glutton for punishment, that guy. He always does double duty on both, and you know, the amount of passion that he has for doing this, not just for racing, but also being one of the people behind WSL, is really, really good, because it shows how big this sim racing community is, and how many different roles that people play, even if they might be drivers, but for him to be part of the infrastructure, I think it's good. And also for the changes for season 5, bring it on.
It's a group effort at the end of the day. You know, it's not possible without the admins, but all the admins' hard work isn't possible without a populous grid of drivers who are turning week in, week out, putting their effort on, and, well, giving us some awesome shows like that on circuit. It's been a pleasure, obviously, to commentate alongside you, Alex, and it's been a pleasure to bring you all of the action at home for the Media Day of the IMB World Series GT3 EU Championship. Today was just Media Day, no points awarded, of course, but in a week's time, we take to the Nordschleife, one of the world's most famous and one of the world's most tricky circuits. And we're going to go around for a 75-minute showdown for round number 1 of season number 5. If you want more action here at Spa, though, well, wait a couple of hours, because the US contingent, as Alex and Harry have been saying, is going to be taking place in not too much time. So 2 separate championships to keep your eyes peeled on over the course of the next couple of months. But for myself, Zach Sweeney, Alex Goldschmidt alongside me in the commentary booth, Daniel Costello trying effortlessly. I mean, well, fair play to him for, you know, keeping the cameras pointed in the right direction, trying to keep up with all of the action. He's had, well, he's earned his keep, let's put it that way. But from us in the commentary booth and Daniel Casello in the production, we'll see you next time. But in the meantime, it's a very, very warm bye-bye.